is through the cracks of our very collective broken hearts that we say goodbye tonight to the heart of our newsroom, Eric Paulsen, not just a beloved colleague and the face of the WWL Louisiana Morning News for 4 decades, but WWL himself. As you know, Eric passed away today after a courageous battle with cancer. Eric was a part of the fabric of New Orleans, not just an anchor, but a trusted friend for so many in our community. And we are with you here tonight as we say goodbye, as you all say goodbye, but also to celebrate Eric, the person who made us smile so many mornings, who made this feel not like work, but like a chance to just come in and see your friends.
Yeah, who would literally be making fun of me right now for laughing.
He would.
And I just ask, you know, as we get through this together, all of us, just bear with me because, you know, we loved Eric very much. And today is about remembering him, honoring him, celebrating him. But of course, you know, that'll be tough for all of us. And as I know it is for so many of you, it's hard walking in this studio this evening to remember him as we sat with him here on this sofa pretty much a month ago. But we're happy that you're here with us tonight, and we're happy that we can all do this together. A man who gave so much of himself to this city, fully raw and unfiltered at all times. And we're remembering him here tonight at WWL.
For more than 45 years, Eric Paulsen wasn't just a news anchor, he was an icon. Eric will always be a part of the soul of WWL TV and the New Orleans community. From early mornings in the newsroom to the stories that touch the heart of the city, Eric brought warmth, curiosity, and passion to every broadcast.
The morning news is kind of like life itself. You know, it's not all good or bad, happy or sad. You know, we kind of like are a companion in the morning, and that's how I always felt the morning show was.
Eric was born and raised in St. Louis and earned his journalism degree from Southern Illinois University.
I went to school to be a sound engineer because
Really?
when I decided that maybe vet school was going to be too rough, I decided I wanted to be a sound engineer. And then one day my roommate came in and he said, you know, they're holding auditions for the radio station, you ought to try out. And I did. I got the job, and then they said they were holding auditions for the TV, and I tried out and I got it, and that's what I did.
Wow.
His journey with WWL TV began in 1977 when he joined the station and helped launch the Eyewitness Morning News. It didn't take long before he became the familiar face New Orleanians welcomed into their living rooms every morning. His charisma and chemistry with co-anchors like Andre Trevine and later Sally Ann Roberts turned the show into the highest-rated morning program in the country.
And that's when Eric started shining, if you want to know the truth. But I didn't know that he was going to be as good as he was. I wanted a community show, and Eric gave me a community show. With others too. Everyone bought into it, and it worked out very well.
Eric's love for storytelling shone through in every interview and report. He was the king of the tough question, and every question he asked managed to draw the true character out of whatever New Orleans legend landed on his hot seat.
I mean, I know people who would say, wait, who's doing my interview? And they would actually be in fear that it was going to be Eric, but at the same time, they also knew that he was going to be fair and they were going to have fun.
Whether it was his historic final interview with literary icon Tennessee Williams or his deep friendship with music legend Fats Domino, Eric had a way of connecting with people that made his stories unforgettable.
Look who's here. Hey, Twine.
What gave me shoved up?
How you doing?
Yeah.
Sure, it's nice to see you, man. Jesus.
I ain't seen you since last time, dude.
And they talked about the old times, and then I said in the interview, I said, let's be honest. If it weren't for Fats, there'd be no Dave. If it weren't for Dave, there wouldn't be a Fats. And if it weren't for Cosmo Matassa, there wouldn't be a Fats and Dave. And they said, you're right. They said, why have we waited so long?
Yeah.
And I said, well, we're together now, we're good.
Behind the scenes, Eric was known for his quirky love of animals, including his collection of turtles and his authentic personality. In 2009, he married his former WWL colleague, Bethany Culp.
I met a woman there, the strongest woman I ever met, so I married her.
And in 2016, they welcomed a son. Eric was always quick to call Bethany the true love of his life. In recent months, Eric faced a new challenge. He revealed his battle with cancer in a heartfelt letter to all of us, showing the same strength and positivity he brought to every aspect of his life.
This is a fight I don't welcome, but I'm ready for this battle. My attitude is very positive, and I have a lot of support from family and friends.
In August, Eric was honored with the Press Club of New Orleans Lifetime Achievement Award, a recognition of his more than 4 decades of dedication to journalism and this community. Just weeks later, the New Orleans City Council acknowledged his extraordinary contributions to the city.
Your true self really comes out, and that sense of humor people really can see and recognize. But what I also recognize, you as my friend, just how much you truly do and care for this city, not only in your job, but you as a person.
Eric was more than just a journalist. He was a part of the spirit of New Orleans. His legacy will live on in the stories he told, the lives he touched, and the city he loved so deeply. For those of us who had the privilege of working alongside him, his absence leaves a void that will never be filled.
Eric, we are all grateful for this good man who chose New Orleans to be his home, his forever home.
The city will forever remember him as the man who brought their stories to life every morning. He was the quintessential news anchor, and our newsroom will forever feel his influence with his larger-than-life presence in the very place that he helped make a powerhouse.
So many memories, so many stories. We were just laughing here, that shot of us in the piece that Katie just put together, and our thanks to Katie for her work there, and Stephen Melanson too for their work on that. We were laughing because oftentimes we'd start the show and Eric would just start talking, and we'd be sitting there for about 30 seconds, 30, 45 seconds, and then he'll realize, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh, you're here too. We're gonna give you a minute, yeah.
And it was always often about something about which he was most excited, and so it was just that he had this boyish charm, particularly when it was something that he loved so much.
Like an actual twinkle in his eye, and it would always be something simple, right? Like food or just, music that he loved. And I think that's one of the best parts of him, is that he taught all of us that it's, important to just love fiercely things that you just enjoy, and you shouldn't make an excuse for that. And he never did.
Including his family.
In addition to his wife Bethany and son Emmett, Paulson is survived by a son John and daughter Lexi, sister Karen and brother-in-law Richard, and a brother Kim.
Funeral arrangements have not yet been announced, but his family does ask that memorial donations be made to Roots of Music at 1020 North Prier, and at New Orleans, or the Ella Project at 400 Esplanade Avenue. You also can donate online at rootsofmusic.org or ellanola.org. City Council President Helena Moreno issued a statement saying in part, quote, "As a former reporter, I had so much respect for his level of calmness in times of crisis and his keen interviewing skills. As an elected leader, I knew that Eric would always be up on the issues and that he would press for answers." Actor Wendell Pierce, he sent a tweet. Eric Paulsen was a broadcast journalist and a gracious and kind man. I will always cherish one particular dinner we shared where his love of music was on full display. He was proud to befriend the great Fats Domino and Dave Bartholomew while they rekindled their friendship. Eric was kind with a huge capacity for joy. My condolences to his family. May he rest in peace.
And speaking of Fats Domino, I can't tell you how many times we'd have a great band on the morning show cover a Fats song, and Eric just sat here and enjoyed it because that was something important to me. He really cherished that friendship. Actually, the reason why they painted one of those murals on Jefferson near his home with a picture of Fats, and he said he just loved seeing that, and it just brightened up the street, he said.
Most definitely, and we're looking at some video right now of Eric with Fats. You know, their relationship stretched back years, and talking about how they met. Apparently, Fats said that Eric kind of stalked him out in the airport trying to get an interview with him because, you know, as if Eric thought you were interesting, he had a bunch of questions for you.
Yeah. Nothing would stop him from getting to get those answers.
Right. And Fats wasn't necessarily interested in the interview, but ultimately did it. And, you know, that love affair is what we see there. And after Fats passed away, there was an extensive documentary that Eric put together. I mean,
really well
Lil Fats Domino, who comes in, and, you know, tribute artist here, I would always look at Eric's face whenever he played because he sounded just like Fats. And you would see the pure joy on Eric's face as he got to listen to his friend. Yeah.
And you know, so many of us over the years have had the chance to sit with Eric. We have got to spend the past year just working with him on nearly every day and getting to become very close friends, family. We are a family here, but his family extends to so many. One of those being Sheba, who sat on, you know, the anchor desk with him for so many years. I know you started not on the anchor desk with him, but
behind the scenes.
That
Sheba,
friendship is
full
beautiful.
Full circle career.
Yeah, and welcoming her now.
Sorry to meet you guys on these terms. And kudos to you for being able to do this. Eric deserves this tribute and more. I just have to hold it together for a couple of seconds. But yeah, I started WWL at 22 as Eric's writer. And anyone who's written for Eric knows what that experience is.
Yes, indeed.
We didn't, but we get it.
Oh, and Sheba, that was back in the day. He mellowed out over the years, so you heard some words behind the word you chose.
But you know, we bonded because I was as feisty as him. We fought from day one.
Of course.
And I always respected that. And you know, he later went on to tell me that he respected how much I stood up to him and stood up for myself. But it was a unique relationship for me. Most people I'm, you know, very mellow with. With Eric, we all had this space where we felt comfortable to debate, to fight, to share our true experiences. He was one of the few people I could be my full self with. And that was one of my favorite things about Eric. That is who he was. He was going to be Eric for good or for bad, no matter where he was and who he was with. And I know you guys know that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about him too. It's so interesting that, you know, we've sat here at different times with him, different moments in his life, and we have that same connection through Eric of, you better be yourself unapologetically, and if you're not, he's going to call it out.
For you, Sheba, that couldn't have been easy, though. I want to ask you, stepping into this role, replacing the legendary Sally Ann Roberts, to sit next to Eric, and to do so at a relatively young age, there was a lot of catching up to do. I mean, talk to me about that transition for you and the level of growth and ultimately what you have become now. Just share that with us.
You know, I wouldn't have been able to do it without Sally and Eric. I was very young. Stepping onto that anchor deck, I was 24 years old. There were many times I was nervous. I didn't feel confident enough in myself back then. And it was Eric and Sally. Anytime I showed the least bit of not feeling confident or not feeling good enough or not feeling ready enough, they were like, hey, wait, you are absolutely ready for this. You are good at yourself. That is why you were there. My journey exists without them. The breaking news, the growth, the areas that I needed strength in came from imitating Sally and Eric. Sally was one of the first people I called today to check on her, and I ended up crying and she ended up praying over me. That's just who he is, and that's just who Eric is. As much as he could teach people and as much as we fought on TV, when I had hard days, when I didn't feel confident, Eric put aside the jokes. He was the first one to be like, hold on. Know who you are and always remember that and walk in that.
That's beautiful. And I know that you have been in touch with him, you know, during this past month when it's been really difficult. And you've also spoke with Bethany. We all love Bethany so much, and she is enduring so much. She shouldn't have to. Just wondering if you have any thoughts or words you'd like to share.
Yeah, you know, once I found Eric was sick, I am really sad. I didn't. We never touched, but we started talking again every few days. And, you know, one of the last spoke, he was actually preparing his speech. And his one line, I'm back with you guys. And he was like, let me read some of it. Like, let me tell you all the funny things I have to say when I come back. He was so excited to be rejoined both. Of course, I've spoken to Beth as well. And I do want people to remember, as much as Eric is an icon to the city of New Orleans, the city close as his home, the love of his life was Bethany Paulson, and he never let you. Even when I left to go to LA and I was battling, like, what do I do with life? I love New Orleans. This is my home. How do you decide when to move up, when to stay, what to do in your journey? I always asked him, why did you stay in New Orleans? When I knew you had opportunities to do more, his answer was always Bethany. He had no regrets in life because his journey brought him to the love of his life. And I always say, that told me everything I needed to know about him. Love, as much as he was feisty and he loved to fight and he loved animals and he loved storytelling, Eric had the biggest heart. He was a big lover, and you saw that wife and his 3 children. He was such a softie. People would probably, who would cry first? Eric will cry all the time. If you brought up Bethany or kid, he was going to cry. He loved them, and I know that love lives on through them.
Sheba, I want to ask you, just as we wrap up this conversation here and sharing so many memories about Eric and talking about his personality, what's the lesson here? What have you learned from it?
So much. Eric's lesson for me, though, is you have to enjoy life. It's never easy. Eric, like everybody else, went through rough patches in life, had crazy stories, things we'll never tell on air. We knew each other very well. What I learned was you laugh. You find reasons to laugh. You make yourself laugh. You fight for the right to laugh because as we look at, and he loved to put a wig on. Laugh and enjoy your life because you can't wait for it to be perfect. Crazy stuff is always going to happen. And I think he also taught me, I remember he also used to say, like, I've worked with so many people. You'd be surprised the people who you think are going to be friends for life, and then you never talk to them again. So I think he taught me you value when you find a friend. It's not going to be perfect. When you find a real friend, you value them. You always know they feel special. And I think today has been a little bit for me because I always, even through this, I called him, kept in touch with him.
I should say we're having a hard time hearing you, Sheba. You're breaking up just a little bit.
I think if they can, I think there's some music that was under the picture they played, and so it's interfering with her sound. It's like taking away from hers, but I think that stopped. So maybe just finish what you're saying, Sheba, there, and I think we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't feel real to me yet. It's been, I've talked to a lot of people today, and I think even in going to talk about him today, I've accidentally almost texted him several times. I think this is going to take a while for me to realize, like, my friend is really gone. Eric, living in Los Angeles, was one of the first people I called about anything big that happened in my life, anything small that happened in my life. And especially since we'd started talking even more to see how he was doing, it just doesn't feel real. I don't feel like tomorrow I can't call Eric, and I know that's going to be a hard reason for me to fix. He just was such a big personality and a fun personality, and he made you feel so loved and was such a good friend. I don't think I've come to terms yet that actually don't.
Yeah, we understand that. Well, we can't even come close to him, but if you need someone, we'll be here. Just send us a text, girl. We got you. I wish I could give you a hug from there because I just know we're all in the same boat, missing our friend. But we're so grateful that we got a chance to talk with you and, hear, who Eric was to you. It was really special. Thanks for sharing that with us.
And I hope you know this, Sheba. He was so proud of you. The city is so proud of you. Eric was so proud of you.
Eric loved you. Yeah, he told us too all the time about that. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sending you guys so much love. Thank you for doing this. I know this is hard for you guys to do. Sorry that we met but always around and here was for us. We wouldn't be here without him. We wouldn't.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That means in his tribute we'll have to get Cosmos in LA.
We'll do that.
Right. Thank you, Sheba.
See you then. So many of us love him, and we've all just have been so lucky to know him. And one of those is Meg Ferris. Everyone knows who Meg is.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Meg has spent probably arguably the longest amount of time knowing Eric. And Meg
Are you
shared.
calling me old?
Absolutely not.
Just checking. Because Eric would have called me old.
But not me, girl, not me. And you shared this tweet just talking about how overwhelming all of this felt, but you described Eric and as wonderful, caring, just one of the people in New Orleans. You mentioned, and I'd love to hear from you, how at the grocery store today, people just were stopping and wanting to talk about him.
I'm in line, no makeup, no hair, sweaty from my workout, visor, just making my groceries,
Sure.
thinking nobody's worried about me. And all of a sudden, a woman comes up and says, "Are you okay?"
Oh.
And I thought she was. I just didn't connect that people would. And then people started coming up and hugging me and hugging me and hugging me and saying, you know, we miss Eric. We loved Eric.
Yeah.
We're thinking about everyone at Channel 4. And I think sometimes we do our job. We're on deadlines, and you know, you're sweating outside sometimes, and you forget that we're family to people out there, and people out there are our family, and they love us,
And they're hurting like we
yeah,
are.
I mean, they really,
we all lost a
really,
family member.
really, yes. You know, there's some people who say, "I grew up with you," and I'll say, "How old are you?" And they'll say, "I'm 30." I go, "Well, you did."
Sure.
Yeah.
But Meg,
You
I'll
know?
be 38 in December,
Ooh,
and
you're
I
old.
remember, I remember you filling in on the morning show with Eric in the early 90s. Y'all spent a lot of time on air together.
Well, let me tell you something about the morning show with Eric Paulsen. So, Eric and Andre had more vacation off, you know, more vacation than God if you added it all together. And so I was the permanent fill-in in the 1990s, and so I filled in a lot with Eric. And I'll never forget this. Oh, I was so busted. Okay, first of all, Eric was like Bugs Bunny or Alvin the Chipmunk, mischievous. But he must have known where the skeletons were buried here on Rampart Street, because he got away with everything.
And he used to try to tell us to do it. It's like, we can't do that.
Ever
Yes.
get away
Right, it's
with.
like, we
I'd
can't
be like,
do
Eric,
that.
I'm not you. I'm not going to get away with that.
So Eric would literally walk in the studio, and the news came on at 6 a.m. And it would be 30 seconds to 6 a.m. and Eric would walk in, I had brought scripts home, I had prepared the night before, I'd studied all my interviews, and Eric would just wing it and do a great job, okay? So one morning, I'm leaving my house at 5:45 to be on the air for 6 a.m. And the news director had temporarily moved 2 doors down because his house was being renovated. And he was coming out to go meet people to play golf before work. And he saw me come out at 5:45. And he, out of the dark, it was dark outside. I was so busted, and he goes, "Meg Farris, you'll never make it on time for the start of the show." And I can't believe, speaking about being feisty, I looked at him and I said, "Not only will I make it for the top of the show, but I will beat Eric Paulsen by about 10 minutes.
And you were right.
And sure enough, I walk in, I get my mic, I have all my scripts, I'm prepared, I've studied the night before. And Alvin, our floor director, comes up and says, "Meg, you're going to have to do the whole show by yourself. Eric's not here yet." Nothing new. Literally, he goes, "In 10, 5, 4. Eric walks in the door like nothing, clips on his microphone. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Eric Paulsen." And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, but Eric could do that.
You're like, dang it,
He was
Eric.
smooth. He could get away with it. I was getting in trouble for being late, but Eric, that was just Eric, and that's why you loved him. And you never ever, you know how
You were never mad at him for getting away with it. Instead, you were kind of like,
it's like your
good
sibling,
job.
you're going to be
You
angry
were
at
kind
your
of like,
sibling.
good at you.
Yeah. No fair.
Yeah.
Mom, he got more than
Yeah.
I did. With Eric, you just accepted it was Eric, and
Eric
you
would be
moved
like,
on.
"Me?
Right.
What?"
We would get him because he had the better laptop of the three of us. So
course he
exactly didn't have to worry about anything until the power cord was nowhere to be found, and there was hell to pay.
Yes. Oh yeah, but I started writing down so many stories. I remember this was just Eric. So I had given a speech at out where they built the external tank at NASA, out in New Orleans East, out in Michoud. And Eric and I loved the space program. We were kids growing up when man walked on the moon and everything. And they had given me as a gift a complete model. It's gorgeous. I still have it, of the space shuttle with the 2 rocket fires, the external fuel tank that was built right here. And it was sat on my shelf in my office for years. Now it's at home. And this is how honest Eric was about how bad he was. He came in and he goes, "Darn it." And I said, or maybe he didn't say darn it, but I said, "What, Eric?" He goes, "I came in to swipe that model of the space shuttle." And he goes, and I did. He goes, "I was going to take it home. You would have never known who's stolen it." And he goes, "And when I pulled it off your shelf, it had your name, it had my name engraved.
I was like, well, I can't do that.
But only Eric would tell you that he was stealing something of yours.
Yeah. He would have been like, what?
And you were
never
okay
know.
with it. You were okay with it because, you know, it was Eric. But I want to tell the viewers, I know the viewers are in disbelief. And I have to tell them that it went so fast that we are all
Yes.
in total disbelief over this. And, you know, Eric, I have to tell you something else funny. In New Orleans, none of us can get away with lying about our age because we all went to different high schools together, right? We all did. All right. Everybody knows everybody in New Orleans. But Eric was from St. Louis.
Oh,
Do you know, I did not know
Until
how
today?
old Eric was until right now because he successfully lied to me.
Meg,
Tell her.
Meg,
Tell her. Wait.
let me tell
her.
you and everybody
And he
at home.
acted like a child too.
Wait, this is so funny because
So along those lines, so we did a team building exercise a few months ago where we took a bike tour of the French Quarter, and part of that was signing a waiver where you had to put your birth date on it. And so everybody's just
he's
like
watching
really
right
staring,
now.
just
Wait,
staring
he's watching
staring to
right now,
see.
looking down at us, go, you did that.
Right. And I think it was Leslie Spoon. Leslie goes, guys, I saw it. Guys, Eric's in his 70s.
We all, he filled out the paper, and I think he was like, I'm gonna use the restroom before the bike ride. We're like, okay. And he went in the bathroom, and all of us ran over, and we were like all trying to get a look, but he did that chicken scratch. So we're all like, is that a 4? No, is that
But let me tell you something.
Oh my gosh.
Eric no more acted his age. I mean, Peter Pan.
Yeah.
I remember, and that's why I loved Eric, because I grew up with 5 brothers, and Eric reminded me of my brothers. And we cut up, like sometimes we would go, how old are we? Because we were talking about stupid stuff. And one thing I could never do is keep my emotions in. And Eric, in a commercial break, when we were anchoring, would do some stupid thing. It's so stupid and so childish that I can't repeat some of the things he would say or do to make me laugh. And we would come back, you know, Alvin would go in 5, and he'd turn to the camera and he'd read this hard news story. And I was like, you know, when you're in mass and your parents are hitting you because you're not supposed to be laughing. And
so
I
then you
would
laugh
have
harder.
the suppressed laughter,
Wow,
and
glad
I
it
couldn't
wasn't just
read
me,
it.
Meg.
And I couldn't read it, and Eric would do that to me, and he got me every single time.
I got him good one
Every
morning
time.
because Dr. Abear was on and called him Pimpin' E. And you know, and he's like, no, not these days anymore. You know, Bethany, no pimping about this anymore. And so we start the 6:30. You know, good morning, yada yada, and I'm here with Pimpin' E, and he was not ready for it and lost it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love when we could get him.
Yeah, when we could get him.
Great.
And he had that laugh when you got him. It was such a hearty
Genuine.
laugh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, when
That
you
you
got him.
felt like, "Ah, I made
Right,
it
it's
today.
like I got
Pat
him,
on my back.
got him.
I got him.
He could get away with anything, but you know, one thing his wife Bethany had told me, she said, you know, Eric was joking to the very end, and he said to the doctor, he said, I feel like I'm at my own wake. People are coming in here. So I was determined when I went to go tell him goodbye, I was determined that I was going to have fun with him.
Yeah.
So I walked in, and he was medicated, so he really wasn't talking. And I walked in and I grabbed his hand, I was rubbing his arm, and a few people were in there, and I said, Eric Paulsen, finally. All those decades you told me I was wrong and you were right. All the little bit we got into each other, I said, I finally get to tell you I was right, you were wrong about all those things, and you can't argue back. And
I'm surprised he didn't wake up right then just to tell you you're wrong.
He opened his eyes kind of big, and I said, squeeze my hand if you can hear me. And he, as best he could squeeze, he did.
God bless.
Well, thank you for sitting here and sharing this
Oh,
with us.
absolutely.
Well, we're so happy you came to talk.
Absolutely.
You know, so many people taking the time to just share their thoughts on Eric, Chef Kev, who, you know, got to feed the man, which is such a blessing so many times. He shared this on Twitter saying that today we lost a great friend. Eric was a friend, a father, a husband, a very talented news anchor. He was kind and funny, a devilish kid at heart, true. He loved Bethany, his children, his friends and family, and we will be here for your family, we promise. I love you, brother. Rest easy. Yeah.
Well, many of you at home, you invited Eric into your living rooms for decades, so we know how you feel, and you feel like we feel. Rachel Handley, she's here with us this morning, talking to people in the community about how they feel about Eric.
Yeah. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. Yeah, people have been saying so much. People told us that they have been watching Eric since they were kids. They talked about how much they loved his relationship with Sheba and Sally Ann. They told us stories about interviews that he had done. People mentioned the Tennessee Williams one. People mentioned his friendship with Fats Domino. People really, really just connected with him in so many ways. And it was amazing seeing just how many people he had touched. I mean, we had no problem finding people who wanted to talk about him. The very first person we approached today told us he had been watching WWL his whole life. He was shocked, and he had so many kind words for Eric. And the more places we went, the more we heard just so many things that people loved about him so deeply.
Personality, always smiled, and I believe he was like a real person, like genuine, like if you saw him out, if you saw him, he would say hi to you.
His wit, he was very, very outgoing. The jokes that he would come out with, and it's so hard to hear that he's not with us anymore.
Yeah, it's hard for us too. And there was one thing that really struck me today. We stopped a lot of people to talk to them while we were out. And some people told us that they didn't watch WWL regularly or didn't watch it regularly anymore. And they still knew who Eric was and still had specific kind things to say about him. That just shows how much of a giant he was for people here in our area. It was really amazing.
It was, Rachel. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes,
and
that was great.
Just letting us know, again, that we loved him, but he belonged to those people out there.
Yeah, that's true. And as we continue here talking with more people, we're going to keep bringing, people on who have got to spend the years with Eric and talk with more. So we've got Vatican who's joining us. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi, Brianna. Hi, Brandon.
Good to have y'all with us. How are y'all doing? Y'all were good friends of Eric's. Tell us, actually, let's back up for a second. How'd y'all meet? You and Eric?
Well, you start. I met Eric way back when he first got here doing broadcasting by doing theater productions and coming into WWL to publicize them and such. And it grew and grew until he came to town and we started doing the Carnival broadcasts. I first met Eric on my very first morning show appearance in March of 1993. I was coming on to promote a show, and we had an excellent rapport from the very first day, and it just continued on for the next 30 years.
Beautiful.
And talk about a genuine relationship. Y'all would come in, if you can't tell, because they don't have their makeup on this morning. It's Professor Carl Naval and Grand Marshal Mardi Gras with us here. Y'all would just go at it, and it was fantastic. And he would act like he's not paying attention because he's doing something, playing words with friends or whatever, and then he'd just say something that would cut you real quick, and then you'd get him right back.
Oh yes, take no prisoners. One of my favorite memories of many with him was a live morning broadcast in the studio, which we stopped doing from that point on. For some reason, Eric got fascinated by a Nerf football. And on live television broadcasts, he'd be broadcasting, and it's like, Edward, take it. And the camera would follow. I'd hit the Nerf ball, say something, and okay, got it. We were tossing a live Nerf football on TV, and that was what you got when you watched Eric on the morning show. Was just spontaneous enjoyment of life.
He was such a big kid, that's why,
And supported you all in the theater world significantly. Talk about that relationship.
Yes.
He was always very supportive of Edward's career and then mine when I family came along. And he actually performed in one of our productions of It's a Wonderful Life. He was our narrator and was happy to do it, and the audience was thrilled as always to see him. He had deep connections to the New Orleans theater community. Even though he wasn't an actor, he knew a lot of us. And he and former producer Dione Butler were dedicated to getting the local theater people onto the morning show and helping us promote our shows. And aside from that, it's the relationship and the deep friendship, sorry,
No, we understand.
that we were lucky to have with Eric was a joy.
It was professional and it was personal. It was real life with him. And there really is, it's difficult to put into words exactly what we lost and what the city of New Orleans lost today. And we still have to all come out of it with joy for him. We truly do.
And just being able to spend time with him, as you said, in the studio, cutting up with one another, barbs left and right. We said some of the most horrible things to each other.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, you both would laugh at it. You know, and while today is heavy for all of us, like you mentioned, we all lost something so important to all of us. I would love if the last thing you guys end with us here is just give us a funny memory or something that, when you think back, you think Eric and it makes you smile. I think that's important for all of us because that's what he'd want, right?
But remember, it's a family show.
I'll go first.
Right.
I'll go first. At our 12th night wedding, Eric and Bethany were there, and the catering was set up beautifully. People were supposed to go to it when it was over and ready to be received. And Eric discovered a gigantic tin of Ramaki. Now, Eric loved Ramaki as much as I did. Eric started the ball rolling, and by the time we got into where the food was, the Ramaki was cleaned out. And he was proud of that fact.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
My favorite memory of Eric, the one I'd love to tell people, is back in the 1990s, when Sally Ann was brand new, Eric didn't like doing the sports reports. He just didn't enjoy it. And I had come on with a local actress named Lara Grice to promote a production of The Importance of Being Ernest at Le Petit Theater. And Eric, without telling the booth, asked us to do the sports report in character.
In full costume.
In full costume, in full character.
Period costume.
And the only thing I can remember saying was, and now this from the world of sport. And I can hear him giggling off camera. So pleased with himself that he's done this. And it was the very last time that anybody else was ever allowed to do the sports report for Eric Paulsen.
But Eric knew he could get away with that.
We were talking about that.
You can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we thank y'all so much for spending time with us. Edward Cox, Vatican Low-Key,
Thanks for
Grand
having us.
Marshal Mardi Gras, Professor Carl Naval. Looking forward to seeing y'all back in the studio soon.
Can't wait. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you come Carnival.
Yes. And we've been talking about a lot of the tweets and whatnot that folks have been putting together in tribute. Local band, the Imagination Movers, they wrote this: Eric Paulsen was a champion of the Movers. You will be missed, Eric. And that's so true. A champion of so many local musicians, so many people who are a part of the heart and soul of this city, the voice of this city. The blood that pulses through the veins that is this city, the water of the Mississippi River, including the legendary Baptiste family. Damon Baptiste here with us. How you doing?
Oh, good morning. Just really shocked, man. Just in disbelief, actually, to walk here with all the, just got a joke for Eric. I said, Eric, you have to be bigger than Taylor Swift this weekend.
He would have loved that.
Yeah, I mean, because he always found the silver lining in everything. And we had a special relationship that I could just talk to him, the biggest regret I have is that Eric and my brother Russell were the only two people that have not made it to South Africa with me. I've been there 88 times in the last 26 years, and he always would tell me, he was gonna come.
But you did get to Cuba with him.
He went to Cuba with Trombone Shorty's band. And
I thought you were there. I apologize.
He went to France with, he went with Robert Rollins, so we had mutual friends that I worked with, and I actually was promoting. I went to Cuba with Trombone Shorty, the first venture.
So that's why I thought you were with him on that one. Okay.
Well, we kind of, he really kind of blew up the family locally. John might have had Stephen Colbert, but we had Eric Paulsen, and Eric Paulsen really, did it for the Baptiste brothers, myself, my international organization. And
tell us that story. How so?
Well, he was with, we first started with Andre Trevine, then Sally Ann. So we were kind of like the community band for WWL.
Okay.
So Eric loved music, so he would always call, you know, we would always go on Channel 4. Then our relationship, you know, I was his Bubba sports guy where I used to read the sports.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Because nobody wanted to do the sport. He didn't want to do the sport, so
No,
anybody
He
could
never
do it.
wanted to do it.
Yeah,
So
we
he could
share
ask
that.
anybody.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
just-
so right, it was anybody. I was into anybody, you know, to read the sports every now and then, and then we just developed a relationship. Then, you know, I know he was good friends with Amanda Shaw, James Andrews, you know, and then for the Lundy Gras, it just, you know, Oliver Thomas was outside. He you know, declared it my day on Lundy Gras and WWL. It was like a family atmosphere, and that really helped out Spanish Plaza, Riverwalk. But if not for Eric, that's how I met you guys, because he was like family to us. So when I walked in, you know, I met you because of Eric, and you guys embraced us.
And I remember that morning, y'all, when we had just started, and y'all came in, and it was right after Russell had passed away, and it was a Baptiste family reunion here in studio, and to see how Eric wasn't a reporter. Eric was a member of the family. It was Eric Paulsen.
But Eric used to always he always asked me to bring in more music. I said, Eric, you know, I can't always get all those musicians early in the morning. You know, it's a 9-pan gig.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll do what we can. But then he called James to, James wasn't actually on the bill, but James played the Lundy Gras morning. And from that, there's more activities that happen out at the riverfront. Probably because of, you know, Eric. Eric introduced something that's still going on. You know?
And Eric and I mean, if people remember back, we did Bacchus.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
and then
late at night, and then no sleep. You know, would turn around from the morning show outside in the freezing cold, and neither one of us thought to bring like a good jacket or anything.
So I think we have to do probably like a music marathon, something for Eric, like 24 hours of constant music, because he just loved music so much. He loved it. And he used to always ask about one of my uncles. That son is famous on CBS. You know, the late show. So Eric would, you know, it's kind of like we had an extension from New Orleans to New York because of CBS. So I think, you know, we want to do something special with our friends.
Yeah. You let us know, because we'd love to be a part of it.
Right.
So one of the things too, when I founded the Baptiste Culture Arts Academy, Eric is on our wall of fame with all the musicians, him and Norman Rob. I just talked to Norman. He never saw that, you know. He never did the tour, but he's on the school wall. He's still there.
Wow.
I want to ask you this, and they're telling us to wrap, but I just want to ask this question just about, you know, what Eric means to music here in New Orleans, and here's how I ask that question. New Orleans has changed a lot, and there is a bare-knuckled fight to maintain, retain, sustain the culture. Unfortunately, when lives have their sunset, and perhaps if they were champions of certain things, you don't have that anymore. How do you think we'll remember Eric's legacy, commitment, and meaning, what he means to music here in New Orleans going forward without his presence?
I hope, and I'm going to have to think about it and pray on it, but because the morning show, how the format was, you had like almost a late night, early setting, whereas people woke up to Eric and, you know, his accompanying, you know, person, because it changed over.
Oh, there's so many.
But Eric constantly stayed, and he told me that he said, "Damon, I'm not going anywhere. I'm probably gonna, you know, I'll be here with the grass." You know, but the music that came on, so a lot of people, you know, like almost like Saturday Night Live or something. This was the Saturday Night Live for the locals. Because people got their new music out, so this was really it. So that. Maybe it could be renamed, you know, something with Eric's memory, because he really loved music that much, and he helped out the musicians. Whatever doing Jazz Fest, you know, if you got a Channel 4 morning slot, then mean that your show could be successful, you know.
Well, I can promise this, Eric if nothing else, we'll leave that legacy here for the morning show, and that will continue to be what we strive to do. And we won't change that one bit.
No,
we promise
you guys have done, and I'll be writing to someone to say, guys, is so important. Like, you know, things have changed because people want to be paid. But we came in as, you know, friends because we wanted to do something for Eric, because what he's done for the family.
Yeah, we'll continue to do that. And thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
And we're thinking of your whole family. I know it's a loss just for you guys as it is for us.
I'm still kind of, I'm really, you know, like I'm saying, another person that we were this close to.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know he was that old either. I thought he was really.
Yeah, because
he wasn't. He was 25.
He was 25. 25.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Thank you,
See you
sir.
soon. Thank you.
All right, bye.
And we're also hearing from members of the WWL family. You know, we've got quite the list of alumni, including the legendary Mike Hoss, who's with us. Mike, I know you were traveling and you found the time to speak with us, and we're so grateful for you for that. How you doing?
Well, like everybody else, right? You know, you're going to hear a whole lot of too soon, too fast, and that's not even really putting, you know, kind of any kind of semblance or make sense of it all. But yeah, too soon, too fast. I mean, we all think you have time to talk to him, to text him, which we all did. I was, you know, the morning show, as you guys know, when you get up at 2:45 and 3 o'clock in the morning, you become a lot closer than just the average guy in the next cubicle, and you become family. And so you're just very close. And so Laura Bartell and Sheba Turk, I'm in Los Angeles right now. I flew out. I was for the concert last night, flew out today. So I'm in Los Angeles today for the game tomorrow. And so we stay very much in touch. And it's been years since we were on the morning show together. Tamika and Laura and Sheba and myself and Eric and Sally Ann. And so that's kind of unique that 4 and 5 and 6 people would leave kind of the industry, but yet stay in touch. And that's kind of what the morning show does. And Eric was always kind of he was the head honcho, right? I mean, he always was. He'd be the first to tell you that. He was the head honcho, right? And so he was already so entrenched, it felt like when I got here, and I got here 11 years after he did, in 89. I think he and Sally Ann almost started together, like in 78.
2 weeks apart.
Yeah, that's insanity, right? And then, you know, 30 some years later, they're still anchoring together. And so, you know, I think people probably forget some of the early stuff where he was out on steel rigging and doing stuff that we would not let reporters do right now. But you know, he wanted to be a part of it, and then, man, he found his niche, and that niche was the morning show, and that niche was food, and that niche was music, and nobody engulfed it more than Eric. He didn't just do it for the morning show. Those chefs and those musicians were his friends, right? They truly were. He lived New Orleans like we all say we should, but we don't. He went out to restaurants. He went to the music scene. He just did things that you're supposed to do in New Orleans. Not talk about it, not tell people where to go. He did it. And I always appreciated him for that, man, because he lived it. He didn't just talk about it. He lived it.
I mean, if you wanted a recommendation for a restaurant, or should I go to that festival, or, you know, I would just ask him, and then I would make my list in my phone based off what he told me. And it wasn't just a restaurant, you know, Mike, he would say, okay, and you're gonna eat this, and I want you to get this. And you're so right. I mean, he lived the things that so many of us say we will do and have time for. And you got to know him during...
With the mask on during the pandemic.
Look
of
at him.
Course, Paulson. Of course.
I know you probably have a list, Mike, of memories of him and just funny stories. Anything in particular that you thought of when you're reminiscing?
Well, you know, when Eric was Eric, right? So we would the morning show would begin at 4:30, and he would have a tease at 6. And it would be 5:58. 5:59.
Yep.
And he lived. I knew where he lived. I'm like, nobody can time it this perfectly all the time. But 5:58, 10 seconds, and would hear the door, the big bank
hear
door
that
open
noise,
up, and
yeah.
he would pop in. It's like, I think he went to bed with a microphone on,
Right.
so that he could just come in, just walk in and do the tease for 6 o'clock. He was, and then, Katrina changed a lot of everything for a lot of reporters. When they were in Baton Rouge, we were in New Orleans, then we went to Baton Rouge, and we all kind of lived together. We were just digesting the news of the cancer, and so this has been so tragically difficult for everybody at Channel 4, and I'm just sad. It's just sad.
Sad's the way to put it.
Mike, it is a sad day, but it's also an opportunity for us to remember someone who loved and lived as hard as Eric. And so with that, as someone, you had the unique opportunity to, I remember, I think I was working in maybe Connecticut then when you made the swap from nights to mornings and you're there with Eric. Just tell me what that was like, making that transition. A lot of talk about Eric being alpha. Well, here's Mike Haas coming in on the morning show too. That had to be funny.
It was, and we joked early on. People thought that there was a lot of combativeness and competitiveness, and I was coming after his job. Well, guess what? I left 5 years, but he was still on the air. So, I don't think there was really any worry there. But yeah, Eric, he made sure that we understood the pecking order, yet he also understood that there was value. Because you know what? I would do sports, and he'd have to do sports, and he loved that. He didn't have to do sports anymore, and I think it took some time. And as you know, the most important aspect of any anchoring relationship, Sally Ann, Laura, Tamika, Sheba, me, Eric, everybody, is trust, right? And he knew early on I went after his job. I was just wanted the job.
Yeah.
And so he trusted me and I trusted him, and there was never a problem. And that's the key. We loved each other on the morning show. We trusted each other. And when you have that, you have gold. And then you have people still talking to each other 5 years after not being in the business. And they're still one of my best friends in the world. And man, he was kind of like, he is what we say, and that is, do what Eric did. Don't do what Eric said to do.
Right.
Do what he did. Right?
Yeah.
Do what he did. Go see a music. Go down to a club. Go over to the Marigny. Eat here. Do it. Don't just talk about it. And I am the worst of just talking about it. I don't do it. But I'm hoping to change.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all use that as a little inspiration. Mike, we know you've got a lot going on, so we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and just know we're sending our love right there to you as well, as you are going through this, just like all of us.
We feel it as well. Yeah, man. I mean, he's, it's family member. It's WWL's family, always will be. And so we all say prayers for his family, and for Eric, and for everybody at WWL. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that. Governor-elect Jeff Landry also tweeted, and we want to share that with you in part. Sharon and I are saddened to hear about Eric Paulsen's passing, and we're incredibly grateful for his contribution to journalism in the city of New Orleans. He was a legendary anchor, and he will be missed by all.
Representative Delisha Boyd sent a tweet about Eric too, saying, "I am deeply saddened to hear the news of the passing of my dear friend of 30 years, Eric Paulsen. His kindness and unwavering support touched the lives of everyone. Join me in honoring his legacy and celebrating the beautiful moments we shared. His spirit will live on in all of us." Many a politician got the opportunity to be on the receiving end of one of Eric's questions, including this guy, Councilman Oliver Thomas. We're so grateful that you joined us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. My family's hearts and prayers go out to Bethany, John Emmett, and Lexi and his family, to know that we're mourning his loss, and our condolences go out to them. Eric was everybody's friend, but also a very serious journalist.
I want to ask about that, because we're all talking about our relationship sitting here with him and anchoring with him, and I've never had to be on the other end of questioning from him. Well, maybe a little. He would grill me every now and then he want to know something, but for you to be sitting in with him in that capacity.
That's a great question. Of course, we all know he had this big personality, right? And as an elected official, you had to get prepared. If you weren't prepared for Eric, because he had this way of disarming you, charming, nice. He would talk about something so out of what he really wanted to get to you, right? And you would be comfortable, man. You're having a great conversation. He said, but Oliver, you know what made you do this?
You're like, whoa.
But he didn't do it in a way where he set you up where you thought, it was kind of like surprise or journalism. If you'd been interviewed by him, you knew at some point he was going to have a good time with you, but he was going to ask you tough
He had a job to do.
questions.
Yeah.
Brandon, you and I talked earlier, at the Black Men's Conversation about voting. Yes, and once I got a chance to understand him, I knew I could come to interview him, sit on the morning show, have a good time, but be prepared. He was going to ask you about the city budget, about why the trash wasn't picked up. At some point, he was going to have a real good time with you, make you comfortable, and say, but you think that was the right ordinance? You think that? And for me, it got real personal because, my life was real public about what I went through. And him and Sally Ann welcomed me back to do an interview after I came back, from what I went through with my life, and they didn't have to do that. And so, and Eric was like, and him and Sally, they were both like, so, what's your next chapter? And I didn't expect that, right? But nah, man, come, and that was an interview I didn't expect because I wasn't a public figure anymore. I'd gone through something really serious. And then the last thing I remember was, and your station gets so much credit, he set the table for the Renaissance we have in District E now. When he went out there to the Hangout and did a live show and basically highlighted all of the assets of one of the largest African-American communities that had been unfairly stereotyped and branded, he set the table for a lot of the success we're having right now. And that man, I miss him.
Yes, we
I
do.
miss him.
Yeah, as we all do.
We all miss him.
Yeah.
What do you think the takeaway is from that perspective? Someone who's not from New Orleans, but championed New Orleans more than anybody, to many people who are from here.
Great question.
You mean he wasn't from New Orleans? Because I can't even remember at this point. That man was from New Orleans.
He graduated from 35 over there in 19 whatever,
Someone give him
baby. He was,
When you think about our conversations, right, from Wisconsin to Southern Illinois, to Savannah, back to Madison, here, when I learned that he was a DJ at one point, because I was used to like, where is this rhythm? I'm like, man, you like an honorary brother, right? I'm like, where is this rhythm? Where is this ability to have fun in any setting? Look, Eric would pop up if there was something happening in the hood or somewhere. Yeah, he did not feel. He felt comfortable everywhere he was. We never looked at him, Brandon, as someone who wasn't from New Orleans. Because when you from New Orleans, you got this thing about people, if they're not willing to adopt the culture and blend in. Never got that feeling from him. He was gumbo, second line.
Or even more, I'll give you this one. He was pork chop fried hard between 2 slices of white bunny bread. We talked about that quite a few mornings.
You would say that, and he'd be like, "Oh, I could eat that right now
didn't
at 6 a.m."
Didn't I say honorary brother?
You mean it.
You would see him in the Maroney and festival events. I often wondered how Bethany and the family is. I mean, because he was still a product of the culture here in the city, man, from Indian culture to second line culture. So I never felt like Eric wasn't from here. I felt like he was somebody who loved us and our culture so much that he wanted us to know that it was part of him. That's how I always felt.
Absolutely, very well put.
And also, I liken this morning show to, honestly, a community table. It's a chance for the community to talk about what's going on in the city on this show. You don't get that anywhere else in this city because that's what this morning newscast is. What do you hope? I mean, I know you guys want this to continue, but what would you suggest? I mean, considering your years of expertise and your relationship with Eric, what is our direction moving forward in keeping his legacy going, but also doing our jobs?
That's a great question, and I think it's what he stood for, what I've watched you and you stand for, and what all of you, your co stands for. Man, the delivery of quality services to citizens. Eric knew how to have a good time, but say, hey man, you know, the trash ought to be picked up on time. The city ought to be safe. The roads and the potholes, you know, ought to represent every community. And I think you guys are on track to continuing that. But the thing that I will miss about him is that, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but to talk about the interracial couples on the morning show, right? From Andre to Sally Ann, and the ability that, you know, you didn't have to look at race, you looked at delivery of a quality news product in the show. I think he was one of the pioneers for that, not only here, but in this country.
Sure.
And I think moving forward, y'all represent, hey, the issues. You know, issues with a rhythm. You know,
yeah, there we go. Get in the groove, literally.
Issues with some second line. And I think that'll continue. But he could have a good time and then ask you serious question about delivery of services.
Yeah, because he really was New Orleans.
Right.
Every bit of it.
I would say no doubt about it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us and sharing your thoughts, and we'll continue to have these discussions
Thank you
and
guys.
hear more. Yeah.
Blessings to the family.
You know, Eric was an icon of television in New Orleans. Back in 2022, he sat down with their friends over at Tipitina's to discuss life and also give a little perspective.
Until I experienced more music, you know, I thought music was only either classical or rock and roll. And then I get here and it's funk and jazz and just all kinds of stuff. And it's like, I'm going, yeah, because you get, the more educated you are on anything, the more your eyes are open to understanding that not everybody is the same, not everybody thinks the same, not everything, like if you and I both see an accident out on we're at Napoleon and Tchoupitoulas,
yeah.
and we see an accident, you and I are going to see the same story, but from two different viewpoints. You'll notice something I won't notice. I'll notice something you won't notice. And if you want to get biblical, you look at the four Gospels. They all tell the same story, but from different viewpoints. And so there are four different views of the same time of Jesus.
Eric Paulsen, you know, we had known throughout the week that things had taken a turn, and I would sit on set looking at the clock at around 5:51, and I would look up and think, man, wouldn't it be great to just see him darting around the corner, and that big good morning and the smile he had on his face to see us, and maybe it was something he had to say that was crazy, or if it was Friday, he's like, how you doing? Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday.
And I think with that we say, thank God for Eric Paulsen.
Yeah. I mean, just so many thoughts. I think you and I could sit here for hours and just, you know, talk. And part of that is because talking is healing. And so, you know, with that too, we love to hear from all of you. I've gotten so many calls and texts and messages, and just know if I haven't got back to you, I will. I see them and I hear them, and it's so important for us too, because that's a bit of healing. To hear from all of you who loved him the same way that we did. You know, Leah, she's not even working. She worked this morning, and she came in just to sit here to be with us because we were and are still a family. Thank you. And we have so many thoughts and things, but I wrote him a card. And it's so funny that you say that, because that's what I wrote in the card. And I didn't even tell you, but I said, you know, there's this moment in the morning, and it's funny because everybody's talked about it. Like Sheba talked about it, Mike talked about it, that 5:58.
Right.
And I would always hear, because it's this huge door that you kind of just hear this noise when it opens, even if you're like in the middle of talking. And I would hear that noise, and it just was like this calmness where I knew he was going to walk around the corner in this big smile, and he was going to say something stupid or something silly or make fun of me or just give me this like, look. And when that stopped happening, I missed it so bad, and it's so strange to miss like a second in time. But it became part of the rhythm of my life and every day, and just having that. And he would sit down like, you know, it's just so comfortable, and this is home. And we've got a lot to work through ourselves, because that was our one of our best friends, our family. You know, he sat right here. And this is going to be a journey over the next couple of days, weeks, months, years. And Monday, we're going to have much more and hear from more of you, so we hope you join us then. But just We love you, Eric.
We do. And before we do leave you, I hope that you all know, watching at home, that this was and is and will remain a very sincere relationship. We all loved each other, and I say that because a lot of you, particularly when we started a year ago, y'all would, me and Counselor Thomas were talking about this earlier today. Eric and I are kind of similar in the sense that we both have alpha personalities. And so starting out, we had to figure out how to get into the groove on the bike. And people would ask me, do you like Eric? Do you and Eric like each other? I was like, we do. We're just very, very similar in some ways. And over the time, after we got to spend time to each other, Mike Hoss was talking about that trust, and that trust developed. And we had such a good time up here, and it was such an honor when you grow up here in this city, because I can't say this when I'm anchoring the news here, but when you grow up in this city, there is no other morning show. It's the WWL Louisiana Morning News, or as we know it, the morning news on Channel 4. And
that is Eric.
Yes.
Eric Paulsen to a T. When you think of the station, you think of him. When you think of all the good things about New Orleans, you think of him. And you're so right.
Yeah.
It was an honor.
And I just can't think but be grateful and thankful that somehow life brought me back home, and not only to have been brought back home, but to work with you and to sit next to Eric Paulsen.
We got to do that. And yeah, that's beautiful.
We do thank y'all for inviting us into your homes or wherever you may be receiving this today. Our tribute to Eric continues tonight. We'll be live at 10. Sharice Gibson will be here with you on the news, and we'll be here tomorrow morning beginning at 7 a.m. And you'll see so many stories from the people who knew Eric Paulsen and say that their lives are better because they did.
And I think as we say goodbye to you tonight, let's all take a little bit of what Eric taught us and these lessons we've learned from him, and just go hug your loved ones. Go to that restaurant you've been saying you want to go to. Take that date you've been putting on the calendar and skipping. Just do the thing that makes you happy, because that's what Eric did, and that is what he taught us all.
Yeah. We love you, Eric.
We love you, Eric.
Y'all have a good evening.